तू मेरा कोई ना होके भी कुछ
Gone.
मेरा ना रहा जब से दिल मेरा
Gone.
कलंक नहीं इश्क है काजल भी
Gone.
मैनू काला चश्मा हो मैनू काला 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 काला
Gone.
क्योंकि अपना टाइम आएगा तू नंगा ही तो आया है क्या घंटा लेकर जाएगा
If you have recently been to Spotify, you must have observed that the famous Bollywood or Hindi film industry songs are missing. The reason is the whole licensing dispute between Spotify and second biggest music company of India, Zee Music. Well, this feud has dragged our attention to something bigger, the whole Indian music industry. So, what's the whole issue? Why is there such misalignment? And what can we learn from it as a business student? And what are the key study materials for learning more about it? Before I forget, I'll be asking you one question based on the case study, so feel free to comment your point of view. Greetings everyone, this is Aditya and you're watching MBFI'd. First of all, to set the context, Spotify had some licensing disagreements with Zee Music over price, which brings us to the business model of Spotify. Spotify is like Netflix initially. It didn't used to own any movies or series. Instead, it used to get the movies on contract. The same is the case with the Spotify. Spotify gets into the contract with the creator or the company and kicks back a percentage based on the number of listening hours. It was a good deal for the copyright holder as it somewhat protected them from the monster that had been eating up the creative industry for decades. Yes, piracy. If you want to know more about it, I suggest a web series on Netflix, The Playlist. Believe me, if you liked Super Pumped, you would love this too. Sorry for the spoiler, but it was mentioned in the web series how Spotify has become so big that it can set the rates and underpay the artist. Although Spotify has claimed to have paid 7 billion in royalties in 2021 amid claims of low pay from the artists, but if the previous were true, why is it struggling in India? Let's use a simple business model framework of 3 C's, that is corporate, competition or climate, and customer, which will give us a brief idea of Spotify's current situation. First, corporate. The company operates on freemium business model, which means it offers a free basic service. Still, users can pay for additional features and benefits. However, there are other freemium services also. So why Spotify became so big? The first reason is the suggestive algorithm. Before jumping into algorithm, let's just take time to appreciate Spotify mergers and acquisition strategy. M&A can be a best strategy to give your businesses a boost, to acquire a business to cover a flaws of yours and much more. And Spotify used it brilliantly. In 2014, Spotify acquired Econes, an MIT-related startup for music intelligence, for $100 million. In 2015, Sid Scientific, a data science and analytic consultancy, to gain knowledge and in-house expertise. Another major acquisition on their AI path was in 2017 when Spotify incorporated Sonalytics, an audio detection startup. By the way, all 3 of these mergers can be categorized as concentric mergers, where different companies that offer different products, same customer base, come together. The idea is for the companies to pool resources and expertise to offer enhanced product or services in combination. So you see, thanks to Spotify's brilliant 3 major concentric acquisitions, Spotify has created an AI algorithm called BART. In fact, the entire home screen is based on this system. Plus, not to forget, recommendations, automatic playlist continuation, my also like section, and many more. If you want to learn more, I have given a link of the article in the description. The second reason is it made the advertisement predictable, meaning it only advertised on half an hour of intervals. Here Spotify used a theory of cognitive consistency, which says people prefer stable and predictable situations because they provide a sense of consistency and order in the environment, which reduces cognitive discomfort and enhances their sense of control and predictability. So, by making ads predictable, Spotify leaped ahead of many market leaders at that time, like Ghana. Next is competition, but here, just to match the situation, we'll consider another C, that is climate. In climate, we'll be taking in the whole Indian music industry. The peculiar thing about Indian music industry is it 70% of Indian music industry is the movie based, and another 30% is largely classical, devotional, folk and others. In total, it's worth about 1500 crore Indian rupees or $182.5 million, which is a fraction of massive movie industry valuation of 190-100 crore Indian rupees or $2324 million. Ironically, despite 70% of the industry is based on movies, why is there such a difference? It's majorly due to two reasons. First, due to policy gaps, pointing towards wide revenue gap between recorded music industry and film industry. Ancient laws are compounded by unwarranted and unnecessary regulatory interventions, especially in rapidly developing digital marketplace. I remind you guys, recorded music is largely consumed online, as 79% of the recorded music accounts for digital consumption worldwide. So, due to these mishaps and hard to change Indian laws and practices of Indian music industry, no wonder the industry is struggling. Second, the radio industry. Believe me or not, the radio industry is a big thorn on the music industry. In 2001, Phonographic Performance Limited or PPI India set the royalty rate of 2400 rupees per needle hour or PNH, which was challenged multiple times by radio industry based on the argument that it was a growing industry. Coming to recent times, an appeal was passed on 31st December 2020. The new order set the maximum of 750 rupees PNH for A+ category cities for broadcasting sound recordings, substantially lower than 2002 order of 1200 PNH. Ideally, this should have been around 3900 rupees PNH, considering the Indian inflation of 224 between 2002 and 2020. And this rule is causing the music industry a potentially massive loss of about 163 to 225 crores annually. So thanks to this, the only major source of revenue left with the industry is the digital one, which constitutes about 68% of the revenue for the industry. Here is the main argument which is causing the Z versus Spotify. Remember guys how there are fixed rate for radio and how is it bleeding the music industry? Well, online music streaming services like Wink and Spotify and others have been trying to incorporate that into the online industry too. The Section 31D. This section is a sole bone of contention between music industry right now, and this is not the first time that a conflict has arisen. More examples would be Tips Industries versus Wink Music and Spotify versus Warner Music. So, as the rates are not fixed, as 31D does not apply to digital services, the conflict between companies regarding rates are frequent and will be the case in near future until something changes. By this time, you might be thinking that I am taking the side of these label companies / the copyright holders, but the argument can be made against them also. You see, there are only few major companies that are controlling the Indian music industry right now. Tips, T-Series and Saregamapa. These companies exert an oligopoly, meaning that few companies control the whole market and they don't shy away to leverage the situation. Due to the policy gaps, there is a serious lack of standardization of contract. So one label might say not to use the music on podcasts or any other, while other might say to use it anywhere they want until they are kicking back some money. And this is just one example. The contracts are so complicated and detailed that they include every possible scenario as to where it can be used, how, when. Just throw in every WH word and get it over with. Big contracts take about 0 to 18 months to get resolved. Moreover, there is also a tussle of who has the upper hand or who is benefiting the most. Your leverage increases by the number of hits you are producing. So in one instance, an Indian music label quoted for 100 songs, which was 3 times the amount a global music label had quoted for 200,000 songs. And the prices of Indian music industry are regularly inflated to the level of insanity. So, for example, RR gets an Oscar and suddenly everyone in India decide that they will be charging almost 3 times from now on. And this is irrespective of the fact that Bollywood as opposed to South Indian film industry is doing pathetic. Like it hadn't given a hit for years before Pathan. Irrespective of how bad your songs, movies and viewership is, the prices never come down. where T-series are doing an EBITDA of almost 50%. Streaming services are making a loss of 100 to 200%. So this brings us to the final C, which is customer. Let's start with the way the customer likes to consume content. As mentioned earlier, 70% of the music comes from the movies, which defines how users consume. As majority of the songs are movie based, hence the songs are made in context with the movie to fit the storyline. So, as opposed to solo music album without any context, Indian music are driven by storyline, making the visual form of consumption an attractive alternative to solo music. No wonder YouTube has become such a heavyweight. Reportedly, YouTube reaches over 80% of online users in India and 245 million Indians monthly access the service. When it comes to off-screen and offline consumption, piracy would have the monster share. According to a latest survey, 76% of internet users admit to using pirated services in last 3 months. Depending on the source, estimated loss of recording businesses linked to piracy range from about 130 to 260 million. The impact of piracy is notoriously hard to measure, but even by the most modest estimations, 80% of recording revenues are lost due to piracy. So you see, the real competition of Spotify is not other similar app but piracy. Always has been. But good for the industry, things are changing. With faster internet and ad-based free streaming services, the consumption of pirated music is on decline. If we look closely, the current situation, it is more like China pre-2015. The transition to licensed streaming music turned the Chinese market into the fastest growing music industry in the world. However, as Chinese market taught us, music piracy has yet another long-term negative effect. It set the idea that music should be free, creating a huge obstacle to developing a subscription-based music economy. This brings us to monetization. It's hard to sell something when you are in habit of getting it for free. Sure, piracy would be substantially reduced by streaming services, but how would you be able to monetize it? Is the question. Especially when you consider the price sensitivity of Indian consumer. The Indian consumer is spoiled for choice, and to be able to convince them to spend money will be the task at hand. And this is not only limited to India. As per statement from its IPO filing from February 2018, an aggregate only about 13% of the payment-enabled smartphone users in 61 countries and territories in which we have active users on our platform. So, we can say that monetization problem is a global one. However, one more factor attracting the monetization is the rates. As you can see, the UK rates are the highest at 13.12. Country Sweden, it's about $11.18. US, it's about $9.99. At the same time, the rates are considerably lower at 3.44 in Indonesia, 2.42 in Philippines, and 1.7 in India. Although it may look like a loss for Spotify in India, consider the country's huge potential. With the largest population with free market competition, it would be an understatement to say that it's essential for the growth of Spotify, especially when it is blocked into the second biggest market population in China. So, few things Spotify can do is to make more localized content. However, this will be a task in itself as India is a huge and diverse country with approx 400 languages and 1,950 dialects. The better strategy will be to onboard more local content creators, or it can learn from other market OTT platforms like Amazon Prime or Netflix. Here's a question for you. What other strategies or things Spotify can apply to succeed in India? Try to think taking in all perspectives of the case study, and if you want to learn more, I'll be attaching in all the links and research I have done in the description below. This brings us to the end of the video. Please like, share and subscribe to MBA Fight for more upcoming interesting content and case studies.